We're always looking for that next running back to stash that could take the league by storm for a few weeks. And a few months ago, we were looking at Rico Dowdle. Chuba Hubbard was getting ready to start. He was banged up the week prior, but was going to work through it on the calf. And in the comment section, we had questions by multiple people whether or not they should be looking at Rico Dowdle. We did a deep dive on him. We talked about the injury, and we talked about how, hey, there is potential that players playing through injuries could just make it worse, and it happened. That being said, we might be in the same predicament here rolling into week 14. It's unpredictable, but somebody out there has an extra roster spot or already has this player stashed, and we're looking at Kyren Williams, who's been dealing with an ankle injury all week, who's good to go for this week, and Blake Corum's been getting a lot of workload. We're going to be deep diving Blake Corum as he's a trending backup running back who's getting work, who might get more work here down the stretch. If they're looking to keep Kyren upright for the back end of the season into the playoffs, or if they use him too much and that ankle gets worse. But before we dig into this deep dive, you need to click that subscribe button right now. We're doing deep dives all day long. We've done hundreds on the channel this season. Whenever a player is trending, getting more work in their offense, or they're getting searched by a lot of fantasy players, or if a lot of people are just asking, hey, what about this guy? We're going to look up their background, their analytics, their hard-to-find stats, their situation, so you can make your decision on that player. You can make a decision whether to start them, keep away from them, bench them, pick them up and stash, whatever you need to do. We're going deeper than anybody else when it comes to talking about the waiver wire, strategizing around the waiver wire, and we also help you set your lineups. Click that button. Stop missing out. It's a free resource. We will definitely be here next year, and Ric Flair's watching. You don't want to disappoint Ric Flair. But coming out here, Mike LaFleur said the team wants Kyren Williams fresh for the playoffs, indicating a backfield split is likely to continue. A backfield split, both running backs getting touches. Blake Corum, if it continues the way it's looking like, he is a flex gamble, a flex dice roll. Like maybe a 40% shot, 45% shot to get you there every week. If this ankle is becoming a thing, that increases immensely, and that's something to pay attention to. However, we're going to deep dive some of the numbers. That might be the trigger for you to get even deeper invested into Blake Corum. Blake Corum, off and on. Like, you look at the fantasy scoring, and you're like, why should I be invested here? But you go look at the tape, what he's done on the field, and you can kind of see it here with the yards per carry in some of these games, like 11.57. You got one 4.46, 4.31, 6.63, 8.8. Like, on the small sample, he's showing you some gusto. He's been looking good on the field. He's been looking explosive. He's been taking advantage of his opportunities. He's messed up a few times, and they still keep giving him work because this is a team, this is a coaching staff that allows Kyren Williams to get all the work historically because they don't trust anybody else. They got some trust in Blake Corum. This is also a team that will turn Blake Corum into Kyren Williams if Kyren Williams does go down. And he's still trending. He's one of the top trending players right now in Sleeper. The second most trending running back right now, and he's got a lot of upside in this offense. Because if he turns into Kyren Williams, which he looks like he's baby Kyren right now, that's going to be huge down the stretch if something does happen. Remember, 4-star prospect coming out of high school, Michigan versus Ohio State, plus a lot of other schools. 28 offers listed, which means there's a lot more than that. Everybody wanted this kid. Very productive at Michigan. 1,400 yards, 18 touchdowns in 2022. That was the big year. That was the year he should have came out for the draft, but remember he got hurt and then had to come back the next year. But still, he had a slow ramp up in 2023. You see the yards per carry dip, and then came on strong at the end of that season. 27 touchdowns, and you're looking at a player, 3.04 yards after contact per attempt on his career, 3.35 in his big breakout year. That is a guy that takes advantage of space. You're also getting a little bit of work in the passing game. We're definitely seeing that here with the Rams. And what you're seeing here is a running back that got drafted in the 3rd round when they already had Kyren Williams. But when you look at his game for Michigan, he has similar traits, not one for one the same. Like if you did tape analysis, you will see different players. But in the eyes of McVay, you see a player that's a lunch pail player that doesn't mess up, that's highly dependable. And that's what he loves. That's what he likes out of his players. And he wants to be able to trust you. Blake Corum at Michigan was all that. And it took him a year to get this much opportunity during his rookie season. You weren't seeing him on the field. They gave him a year to ramp up into the system. They gave Kyren all the work. But there was a reason why they drafted him so high. It's because his prospect profile led to a notion that you have a very dependable running back prospect. Ran a 4.53 40-yard dash at 205 pounds. Not gangbusters, but you're seeing the explosiveness on the field here with the Rams, which is a little bit more than Kyren Williams. Kyren Williams didn't go gangbusters at the combine either. Pretty much failed it, but it didn't matter. He's a very good player. Football's going to football. And Kyren Williams is holding it down in this offense. You also got Ronnie Rivers, a veteran running back that will probably siphon some work if Kyren Williams does go down. Blake Corum, though, is the next man up. Is the man who unseated Ronnie Rivers and has earned the opportunity. Jarquez Hunter, upside running back prospect from this year's draft class, kind of getting the Blake Corum treatment. You'll probably see more of him next year. More than likely. Kyren Williams, though, has been on fire since 2023. 2022 was the rookie season. He was on IR. He was injured a lot of that year. 2023, since then, 18.2 PPR fantasy points per game. And you look at him in 2025 versus 2024, he's more efficient right now. He's just been more efficient. And you're seeing that right now in the numbers here. 2 yards per carry, 4.7, 10th among running backs right now. Yards per touch, 16th. Juke rate, 14. Weighted tackles, 10th with 54. Yards created, 16th among running backs. Where last year, 15th among running backs in yards created. 32nd true yards per carry. 47th in yards per touch. Juke rate, 29th. And big reasoning for here, he was getting all the work. He was getting all the touches. Like, that was affecting his efficiency. So Blake Corum stepping in, getting this workload is actually helping Kyren Williams. It's helping his longevity. They can use him longer. And then on top of that, they're getting more money per touch out of Kyren Williams than what they were getting out of him last year. Last year, he was second among running backs in opportunity. He was 31st in targets, but 3rd in carries. He was getting all the snaps, number 1 in snap share. He wasn't leaving the field, not for pass protection, not for anything. He was rarely leaving the field. And now that he's getting a reduction of workload, he's actually more efficient. There might have been times and spurts of the season where you wish he had that workload because that gave him more opportunities to get that little bit more yards to help you in fantasy scoring. But overall, long-term wise, this is great for Kyren Williams. Jarquez Hunter, this is more for next year. And we said this a few times throughout the season. Like, he could be getting the Blake Corum effect here where they're just going to give him a redshirt season. And they did that with Blake Corum last year. And this is an offense, coaching staff, that takes some time for them to depend on you, for them to truly trust you. And once you know the system inside and out, they had Kyren Williams returning punch last year because they didn't trust people. And that was a big thing going into the season. People thought Kyren Williams was going to be a bust due to that. We made fun of that on the channel doing a whole video. But you're looking at the specs here. More explosive, draft in the middle rounds. You go watch his tape over at Auburn. You're looking at a very dependable player. Between the tackles, good vision. Like, similarities. Similarities with all the running backs that they're picking up. Lunch pail players that get the job done. That is what they want. You're looking at Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. 4.72 true yards per carry for Kyren Williams. That's 10th among running backs. 4.58 for Blake Corum. Not bad. Not bad. Breakaway run rate, though. 5.6 for Blake Corum. It's that little bit more speed. He's a little bit more fresher. So he's getting that opportunity to explode. Seeing some green. Some of that situational, too. Football's going to football. Football's going to football. If you're getting carries where there's green in front of you, Football's going to football. You just got to throw that in. Like, the numbers don't lie, but they can also say, hey, there's more to explore here, more to peel back. That's one thing to say. Yards created per touch, 2.78, 2.44. He's getting more work. He's getting more opportunity. But Kyren Williams is doing well with Blake Corum. Because those numbers were not like that last year. And the year prior wasn't like that either. This is really his most efficient season with all these touches. This is really a very good efficient season for Kyren Williams. Them two together is solid. And 2.44 yards created per rush is fine for Blake Corum, and especially what we're seeing on the field right now, considering his exposure. And then Kyren Williams versus Blake Corum in the passing game. They don't get much work in the passing game. You're just looking at routes ran per game, 16.25, 2.75 targets per game for Kyren Williams. Blake Corum's not going to out-target Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua. Like, why would I check it down when I got two wide receivers that are open at will? Why would I do that? For them to open up in the passing game, both those wide receivers have to open up, which would create problems in the run game. So really, you just have to eat this part. It doesn't matter. The volume's good, and you can't stack the box. You can't put the DBs back there because guess what? You're going to get ate up in the passing game. You just got to live with it. You are running some routes in the slot, 25 on the season for Kyren Williams, so about a handful a game. And Blake Corum's getting a little bit. So you can definitely see Blake Corum getting the Kyren Williams work in the passing game. If Kyren Williams goes out, you're looking at the yards per carry. They're dead nuts even. 4.7 on the season. 4.7. You're also looking at the yards on the season, 422 versus 868. The share of rushing attempts, 29% versus 59%. You're seeing Blake Corum turning into baby Kyren if Kyren goes down. Blake Corum will just turn into baby Kyren. Efficiency numbers might be a little bit different, might be reduced, but workload-wise, what you're getting out of Blake Corum will probably be something similar to Kyren Williams in workload. He will probably be more explosive, more likely to hit the bigger play, but maybe a little less efficient from touch to touch. That is really what the numbers are saying here. That is what the numbers are looking like here. You're looking at opportunity share. You got 14% opportunity share on the season for Blake Corum versus 31%. That is carries and targets mixed together. 10 targets on the season for Corum, 34 for Kyren Williams. They're just not getting much work in the passing game. It's all about the carries and rushing attempts. But since week 10, the opportunity share has ramped up. Kyren Williams' workload has reduced a little bit, but not too crazy. It's always been a split. It's like they haven't noticed the split till recently, but there's always been a split. But now that it's switched a little bit, that came out funny, I'm not going to edit it out, that they're starting to notice it, but it's always been there. We've been talking about Blake Corum all season. It's always been there. That's why we've been calling him Baby Kyren. It's always been there, but now it's cool to point out. Big fantasy whiffed on this because you want to be early on your handcuffs going into the double-digit weeks. Because if Kyren went down 2 weeks ago, you would have to blow a lot more fab because more people are invested in your league. More people are still in the hunt. More people are going to lay down fab for you to acquire him, which means you got more competition because someone in your league would throw down all of it. And you don't get him. You lost Kyren if it's for a season, most of the season. Now you got to fight against baby Kyren when you could have had him cuffed. That's the thing about this. That's the thing about this in the playoffs if you don't have him cuffed with Blake Corum. Ultimate handcuff here for Kyren Williams. You're looking at this matchup here against the Cardinals, and really, this is just a situation just in case the ankle acts up, or if they give him a reduction of workflow this week, which is unpredictable. But you're also looking at the numbers. You can definitely see it. You're also looking at this Cardinals game. You can definitely see that they could be road dogging the Cardinals. If Brissett doesn't hit, if Brissett messes up, it's all on Brissett. It's all on Brissett early in this game. They're down Dortch. They're down Marvin Harrison Jr. They got Michael Wilson. They still got Trey McBride. They're roughed up at running back. And this is a nasty defense going up against the Cardinals. This could be a huge impact here. And if they're up, why keep giving Kyren those touches when you're dealing with an ankle when the game's out of reach? So that could be Blake Corum work. It's still a risk here. He's a flex gamble. Nothing guaranteed. But I think the odds of him producing is a little bit more increased. I think for him, hitting 10 PPR fantasy points, 10, 11, 12, which is something he doesn't do too often, I think it's increased probably about like 5 to 10%. So he's probably got about 45 to 55% rate of getting you there to the fairway this week. I think for him to explode, if you played this game 100 times, he'd hit it probably like 10. I'm talking about 20 plus PPR fantasy points. And I think that's a fair number to throw up that now that I'm thinking about it. I just made that up in my head, but thinking about it, I'm pretty good with that because I do this all day long. I'm looking at this. This is a matchup here where all running backs hit the fairway except for one, and that was the Cowboys. That was a weird game script. Now that you look at that, you're thinking about this. Running backs should do well here against the Cardinals. Kyren should do well. If Kyren's full and just getting all the carries, he's going to be fine. Nothing against Kyren, but you're also looking at insurance policy. Why you need him? Because he's baby Kyren. He is the best handcuff right now. Him and Tyler Algier. They're the top handcuffs right now because they're getting enough work right now where you can actually use them if you're in a dire situation, where you don't have to drop somebody else to make that move to not lose your handcuff running back, where you just throw him in, you just pray he scores the touchdown in the game. That's what you can do with him. He gives you that option. There's very few backup running backs that do. He does that. And if that ankle gets worse, you might have to pivot for him. And if you have to pivot to him right now, then it's better to have Marty on your roster than fight the fab. You fight the fab, you got to blow it all. And you may not get him. You may not get him. Why not just acquire him early? He's good on all rosters, really, as a stash. I don't look at him as a start. I look at him as a risky play that could accidentally hit this week. So play that as you will. He could accidentally hit. I think the odds are increased by a few percentage points. Kyren Williams is tough. That's another thing I should have pointed out. He's a tough dude. He's a tough dude. Also, they're indicating that they want to save him for the playoffs. They need to win this game. But also, they're also showing their hand that they feel good with Blake Corum, because if they didn't, he wouldn't be getting touches. This is a team that does not give another running back touches at all. They shipped off Cam Akers. They shipped off Cam Akers for a few mess-ups. And you got to think about it in those terms because was a very explosive running back. And everything behind Kyren or everything on that depth chart at that moment, they just went with jabronis after that. They'd rather roll jabronis than have an upside player back there with talent that's just messing things up, which is an indicator that baby Kyren right now is giving you some baby Kyren, and that's something that could play into effect for your fantasy team if the actual Kyren goes down. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I want to hear about that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. One, thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.